Are you ready to launch your career to new heights? Visit careers.dish.com/technician now and uncover a world of exciting opportunities waiting just for you. From cutting-edge technology to a supportive work environment, Dish has everything you need to thrive. Don't wait any longer to kickstart your next opportunity. Apply today and join the Dish family where innovation meets opportunity. Visit us online at careers.dish.com/technician. Your future starts now.
We begin hour number 2 on the Northland Sports Page. Brian Prudhomme, Dave Cook, bumping in with little Sade, smooth operator. When it comes to radio voices, both in radio shows and NFL play-by-play, I'm not sure it gets any smoother and more entertaining than our next guest, Mr. Paul Allen.
Oh, I agree. Having PA on this station is not just us, but all week long is a blessing, and to have him with us is unbelievable because we have a national level broadcaster, right? And I'm really interested to hear how difficult it would be to announce like a Vikings game on a national network, because we sure are hearing that with the Lynx.
That is the case. I told him I've missed him. We haven't caught up with him in almost a month. The Vikings haven't had a home game in about that time. So let's get right to the man we just glowingly introduced, Paul Allen. Good morning. How are you?
B&D, what's going on, boys? Thanks for the nice words as usual, and hopefully you're ready for the slobber knocker tomorrow.
Should be a good one. Now, I want to start with that because we talked about this with a couple of guests before you. Super important game, division collision. The Lions have been the class of the division going back to last year, predicted to be that this year. The Vikings have obviously jumped out to the perfect start. It's a huge game, but are we overstating how big it is, being that it's the 6th game of 17?
No, it's massive, and it's massive because of the implications with the division champion. All right, so the Lions are the reigning division champions. They're the team. They're the target at which to shoot in this division, with or without Aiden Hutchinson. That's still my belief. So to have them at home one time, and to have that scenario out of a bye week, so you've had extra time to prepare. And to draw the proverbial line in the sand as to who you think is best in the division, you beat them, you open up 2 games on them, and you get a tiebreaker. Now, this thing's big tomorrow.
I can appreciate that because that's somewhat how I feel about things, too. I want to talk about what you said about coming out of the bye, because earlier this week, and granted the earlier part is a key word, but the injury report that the Vikings put out was pretty long for a team coming off a bye week. Now we're 24 hours roughly from a kickoff. What's your take on the overall health of this team going into tomorrow?
Well, not having Blake Cashman, the leading tackler in a game like this, is not preferred. And generally speaking, from an injury standpoint, unless it's just precipitously deep, where you're losing like 5, 6, 7 guys in a game, it has a little bit of a loser's lament to it because you've had all week to practice for it. Now, it's also difficult to complain about injuries when the opponent lost, the best overall defensive player on their team, right, and one of the 5 best overall defensive guys in the league in Aiden Hutchinson. So the Minnesota Vikings are catching the Detroit Lions at a wonderful time because they will work around this Aiden Hutchinson injury as the season moves on. But to get them week 1, now you're going to have defensive end Josh Pascal playing more snaps really than he's ever played consistently. Likewise for some guys they'll elevate from the practice squad. I mean, those guys are going to be going from no snaps to like 17 to 25. Well, I mean, that there's a lot to be taken advantage of there if you know what you're doing. And O'Connell and this offensive staff happen to be very good.
Hey, PA, speaking of that, looking at the Vikings roster, is it possible that Aaron Jones is the most important player on their offense? Like, it seems like we could work around Sam Darnold, but after watching our running backs, it seems that he might be the guy that stirs the entire offensive drink.
Yeah, it's a great question, and it's and I say it's a great question, Dave, because I've thought a lot about it this week, and really with what. Okay, so you just got to connect dots here. Okay, so the quarterback has had mostly a wonderful 5-game run, so we can pretty much agree with that, right?
Correct.
Okay, so now you lay out level of importance. All right, well, without Christian Darrisaw, I'm not sure Darnold has that run. And without Jefferson getting the attention he gets, I'm not sure Jones starts the way he does. Now, when Jones went out, we saw some things fall off with Addison and Jefferson. But in critically rewatching the second half of the London game, well, Jordan Addison should have had a 65-yard touchdown. And for whatever the reason, Darnold went on this weird 11-step drop and didn't step into it and just threw it with his arm. And he threw it 50 yards just with his arm. It was impressive, but it was picked off. If he steps into that thing, the narrative with, what Darnold was like after Jones is a little different. Now, where I'll credit Sam is I didn't like his second half at all. And, there were things that I saw when I watched it back I had just not seen through the first 4.5 games. However, when the pedal went to the metal and they had to make a couple of plays, he found Johnny Mundt and he found Justin Jefferson, and that slowed things. And they were nice long hits. Mm-hmm. So he bounced out of it, which I think is very important for Sam with this team, this coaching staff, this group of players, this undefeated bit. He's never been involved in anything like this. So he's going to have to push through some things too, and he did. I understand what you're saying. It's just very difficult for me to say somebody is dramatically or even more significant than Darrisaw or Jefferson.
I can appreciate that. I can also appreciate that the Vikings brought in another running back with a lot of familiarity with this team from just a season ago. Cam Akers was acquired. We can get your take on that in just a moment. But before we do, I want to talk a little bit about the NFL trade deadline in general. And I'm not going to ask you to get inside my head for me, but I love you dearly and maybe you can, because we know that it doesn't get the fanfare that Major League Baseball's trade deadline does. But I feel like we're seeing a little bit more player movement, or am I just focusing on it more because my favorite team is expected to be in the mix and undefeated right now? Because we're sure hearing a lot of this player might move, this player might move, this player might move. That's not normal, is it?
Well, you got to look at the players that have moved and why. Okay, so we're still weeks in front of the deadline. I believe it's early November.
Right.
And so Amari Cooper, he didn't want to be in Cleveland. Okay, he just whatever. I kind of sensed that when we were back there for the joint practices. That Amari was just not the same Amari that I had known from Cleveland and or Dallas. So I don't think Amari necessarily wanted to be there. But then you look at the Browns, why would they do it? They shed roster. They're not going to the playoffs. And I understand that. Devontae Adams begged out of Las Vegas. So those are antithetical to like generally why people get traded. Now, Kwesi Adofo-Mensah, whether it's in the draft or with Akers, he's not afraid to trade. And I think I've said this to you guys before. One of the many things that I'm enjoying about Kwesi's leadership from a fan standpoint, take us three, is it's easy. It's becoming easier, or it's easier than usual to define if something was a win or a loss. His lines of delineation are quite stark. Now, like the Akers deal, well, that's that they didn't give up much, but that also plays into the theory. That takes me too long to explain, so I'm not going to do it here. But there's been a fundamental shift Kwesi Adofo-Mensah has made, where he is a stock trader by trade. So therefore, why throw darts in round 6 or 7 when I can get a guy like Cam Akers, who is not going to be MVP, he's not going to steal the show, he's never going to rush for 1,000 yards. But in certain situations with this individual team, I know what I'm going to get. He did the same thing in free agency, where look at the list from Grenard all the way down to Shaq Griffin, and right. I mean, just a lot of free agents who are helping. So, Kwesi and I have talked about this a little bit. He hasn't talked about it publicly, but I think I'm onto something here with a fundamental change he has made as the personnel leader of the Minnesota Vikings with his roots to acquiring players.
Kevin O'Connell yesterday, or I think earlier in the week, I saw it on Twitter or X as the kids call it. I wasn't focusing on what day of the week it was from, but in his press conference, he focused on what a great time it is to be a sports fan in Minnesota. Talked about PJ Fleck's team beating back-to-back California teams, the Lynx doing what they're doing. This is a very generic question, but I need to ask it. This Vikings team hasn't been home in a month. They're still perfect. Are you expecting the roof to blow off US Bank tomorrow?
Oh, it's going to be loud. Yeah, it's going to be loud and nasty because it's a very smart fan base. And they sense that we're onto something. Now, in patented Minnesota fashion, and I'm not mad at this, even though I moved here full time in '98, so I don't like go back to when the Vikings were losing in the Super Bowl and stuff like that. But I get it. Is fans are hesitant to latch onto something because they've had their hearts broken so many times. I understand that. But for what Kevin said, and I heard him say that, I think it's always a great time to be a sports fan in Minnesota.
Amen.
Because there are, Omaha, Nebraska, I'm sure has wonderful, wonderful things you can do, probably a minor league baseball team. You can take an hour drive west and go to a Nebraska Cornhuskers football game or see Freddie Hoiberg with Nebraska Cornhuskers basketball, but that's it. Okay, cool. Well, they have their lots in life there that they find for distraction. But here we have 4 pro sports teams. I mean, with the Wolves, the Wild, the Twins, and the Vikings. And then you have Division I basketball, hockey, and football with the University of Minnesota. The Gophers are up your neck of the woods this weekend. Gophers and Sandlin's teams have had battles that have been awesome for years.
Right.
So then you get like Duluth, St. Cloud, Mankato, Bemidji, and so on. Okay, around the country, they may be like, we're happy for you. Yeah, that's a niche sport in a niche part of the country. Sure. But it also plays into the Minnesota sports landscape where college hockey is very, very important to a lot of people here, and I respect that. So I think it's always one. The Lynx too, by the way, playing for a championship tomorrow.
Doubt. Yeah.
I think it's always a wonderful time to be a sports fan here.
I would agree with that, and I got to stick up for the folks in Omaha. They've got good Division I hockey too. Dave, go ahead.
So, PM, I'm going to take
Lancers.
I'm going to take you outside of Vikings for a bit because I've got a question that's been bugging me for a while. If you're a Cleveland Browns fan,
that should be bugging you.
Is your starting
I am.
Is your starting quarterback cooked? And I think the answer to that is yes. But then the question is this: at what point do you go to Jameis?
Well, you don't. I mean, you don't unless that's a very complicated situation, man.
Yep.
And when you say a Browns fan, I am. I mean, I think I've told you guys this before, but the best friend I've ever had in football who's actually worked in the game as a coach or a player is Kevin Stefanski. I mean, we stay in touch a lot. When we went back to Cleveland, we spent time together. His father, Ed, used to be general manager of the New Jersey Nets, Toronto Raptors, Philadelphia 76ers, Memphis Grizzlies, Detroit Pistons, and I love the NBA. Yeah. So his father, and he's really into horse racing, so his father, Ed, and I are very close. It pains me, man, what's happening with Cleveland. It really does. Kevin's a 2-time Coach of the Year. Are you kidding me? But with this quarterback, and you say Jameis, okay, I mean, what's Jameis going to do? Come on. I mean, okay, he might get out there and play more freely than Deshaun. And there's no way can I believe that, with everything, all the situations Deshaun Watson put himself in, and he's still dealing with all of that stuff,
yes.
That there has to be PTSD. And if there's not, if the PTSD also could be like closing down and not being the same guy in the locker room and, being gregarious, yet it's fake. So it's the Deshaun Watson situation there, I think, is thoroughly awful. It needs to end. I don't know how it's going to end. But you know what? If I'm a fan of another team in that division, Baltimore, Cincinnati, or Pittsburgh, then I better start rooting for the Browns to win some games. Because if Stefanski ends up with the first or second pick and gets one of these 2 or 3 unbelievably good quarterbacks coming into the NFL, there will be hell to pay in that division because he's amazing with quarterbacks.
Yep.
That's a good point. As we speak with Vikes Vox, Paul Allen, and one of the best radio hosts that I'll ever listen to. Speaking of radio hosts, the Detroit Lions just came off of embarrassing the Dallas Cowboys, and Jerry Jones did Jerry Jones things this week and went after radio hosts. Now, I don't think this is news at all, except for the fact that it came from Jerry Jones and the Dallas Cowboys. Did you hear about that? And is that just one more embarrassing thing going on with the Cowboys right now?
Well, no, it's news. It's news because Jerry Jones, he owns the Cowboys. And he's the most polarizing and well-known owner of any team in the NFL, even more so than Robert Kraft.
Agreed.
But he's also the general manager. So when a general manager who controls the personnel of a team goes after radio hosts in petty fashion, and quite honestly, I mean, I kind of read the transcript of this thing. I didn't like the line of questioning at certain points of it either. Yep. I felt that they were pushing in a way, I wouldn't push, but, you could say, all right, well, you throw nothing but softballs. Okay, that's cool.
They were baiting the hook, though. I agree.
Well, no, I know when to push and I know how to push. And I do it first privately, and then I vet things out, and then I do it on the radio. Because it's to satiate and or satisfy every single particular answer a fan of a team wants is impossible. When you're doing a radio show, when you're calling games, you're just in some way a conduit to the fans, which is what I am, which is what they are, which is what you guys are. But you guys don't, work close to the team. You're up in Duluth. Well, for me and like the radio guys and stuff, they're around a fair amount. And I'm not going to say the radio guys came into it trying to become the show in this thing. They didn't. And Jerry Jones acted immature and he was petulant. But still, I'm not surprised it happened because it's the tension down there, man. I mean, it just has to be supreme. And on the other side of it, you just lost to a team that was winning by 3 or 4 touchdowns
and running trick plays.
Plays,
yeah,
and they're throwing to their offensive tackles.
Right.
Okay. So I mean, there was some vitriol, or we're going to show you up here in your building, and I don't know why, but the Lions went out of their way to embarrass the Dallas Cowboys. I couldn't care less that they did. I happen to like the Lions a little bit, and when Amon-Ra St. Brown caught his first National Football League touchdown back left of the end zone on Cam Dantzler to walk off a winner. You guys remember that game, right?
Oh, yeah.
I do.
Oh, yeah.
All too well.
Yeah. So, like, at the end of the highlight was like 30-some-odd seconds, so we play it in the montage the next day. And like, at the end of the highlight, I was like, not good for the Lions, but kind of good for the Lions fans because it was their first victory in a year. And it was the first time their fans had seen a victory in that building because of the pandemic in 2 years. Okay, now, and the 2021 Vikings, weren't great, and I was kind of fed up with the whole thing anyway, to be honest with you. But when we can't feel appreciation or for a story like that, and even if it's the Green Bay Packers, man, think about the other people's fans for a second. I mean, if they go 2 years not paying their money and not watching their team win, that sucks.
Yeah.
And you can say, all right, keep banging your head against the wall. You're the idiot. Sure. Okay. That could be the case too, but they still go to the game and they still support their team. Well, I mean, I just got savage for that, with social media and Twitter and some callers and stuff like that. It plays into what you're talking about, where with the Dallas Cowboys, they don't have a lot of sympathizers around the National Football League with the way they handle some things. And the Detroit Lions came down there to embarrass them and rub it in, and they did.
That's very well said. PA, we're in a weird spot because we're a weekly show. We're only on Saturdays. So by the time we're on again, it's October the 26th. Mm-hmm. The Vikings will play twice in that span. Detroit at home tomorrow and then travel to visit the Rams. Could be a home game because LA doesn't exactly have a ton of home fans. But how do you see these 2 games playing out, which I know is tough to predict because injuries could happen tomorrow that could make the whole thing go pear-shaped. But how do you keep a focus if you're the Vikings on, getting from 5-0 to 6-0, but then hopefully 7-0 right around the corner?
Great point on the LA game about the fans, and I've thought about that during the course of the week, Brian, because it's a Thursday game. So we got work schedules, we got kids schedules, we got Billy and Johnny and Christy and Susie out of MEA and with all their activities and everything. So I don't think there are going to be as many Vikings fans there as like if this game were on a Sunday. I'm going to be curious to see how that works out when we start the game after 7 o'clock on Thursday. But by the time you guys next hit the radio, I mean, the Vikings have a dynamite shot to be 7-0. Now the tomorrow, obviously, it's a 50-50. It's a 50-50 game, man. The fact that we're coming off the bye, this run defense, that's second in the NFL, giving up 3.5 yards per carry, only 1 rushing touchdown. It's going to have more stress put on it tomorrow than at any point during the course of the season. The Lions are going to bring in number 70, Dan Skipper. You'll watch him run on the field. He's an offensive lineman, happens to be celebrating his birthday tomorrow. Oh, goody. And they go with 6 offensive linemen a lot, and they pass out of it. They'll run behind it, but they'll pass out of it too. That is really difficult to stop. Can't wait to see how Flores stops that or slows that. So the Lions game has some 50-50 to it. I do believe the Vikings will put up a lot of points tomorrow and move the ball quite well. So I think the Vikings will win. Now, the Rams game is tricky because it's a short week. You travel. We leave Wednesday. The whole practice thing's jacked up because players have Mondays off after Sundays into Thursday. And that's just, this is the Vikings Thursday game, so that's the lot in life. You just have to deal with it.
Right.
But it's mentor Tyro mentor. It's O'Connell McVay. And, I do a weekly 30-minute radio chat with O'Connell every Tuesday at 11 o'clock on KFAM. I'm not sure we're going to have that this week because of the short week. We'll have somebody, a general manager or something. But, when I see Kevin this week, I'm just curious to see, like, what he's going to be like because you don't want to go back there and have your former boss beat you. But if you're the former boss, McVay is brilliant. You don't want the one you mentored to come in and beat you. The Rams are starting to get a little healthy. The Aaron Jones situation for me is dicey at best. He was limited every day in practice this week. Generally, when you're limited every single day, you're on the low side of questionable. And then you turn around and you got a short week. So really, how much did he improve in 3 or 4 days? So I think that's going to play into it. And I've been thinking about this Aaron Jones thing a little bit. And off what Dave said earlier, he's so important to this team, man. I mean, him, Jefferson, and Darisaw, those three are so important. If Aaron Jones is not 100% Sunday, tomorrow, or Thursday, I don't play him in either game. Right. So here's why. Because you now can give him a month, basically a month, to fix whatever is ailing him, and you just missed 2 games. One is at home out of a bye, 50-50, you can beat them, and you can beat the Rams with or without Aaron Jones. And then you get that extra time up to the Indy game, and you dust him off there against a run defense that's had problems this year. I've kind of talked myself. I mean, I hope Aaron plays tomorrow, but I've kind of talked myself into that a little bit, that discretion is the better part of valor here at this stage of the season with Aaron Jones. And if he doesn't play the next 2, I wouldn't be surprised. But then again, if he plays tomorrow, I wouldn't be surprised.
That was fascinating verbal therapy. I liked it from PA. Both games should be terrific. We'll know they'll be called perfectly. PA, you're the best. We appreciate the time once again.
Yep, thanks, PA.
Yep, love you guys. Great questions, and look forward to chatting with you again.
No doubt. We love you, too. That's the Vikes Vox PA. We're bumping them out with the Skull Chant. Feel free to do it along with us at home. More Purple Talk. Vensey Glenn is next. We are the Northland Sports Page. Brian Prudhomme, Dave Cook. We'll be right back. That is
Zaxby's Sensation Salad is so much more than a plain old salad. It's a salad, which begs the question, at what point does a salad stop being a salad and become a salad? Is it when you add Zaxby's fried chicken to it? Crunchy wontons? Asian slaw? Citrus vinaigrette? Teriyaki glaze? Sweet and spicy sauce? Or is it when you top it all with a handmade perfectly fried egg roll? Without a doubt, the egg roll. The Sensation Salad, only at Zaxby's.
Is the safety dance. A little earlier slot today for our favorite safety in Vikings lore. Vensey Glenn is with us. That's all part of the Drawing Lines segment, courtesy of Arola Architecture Studio. Arola Architecture Studio is the OG of our sponsors. There are several more. You have a quizzical look on your face, and that concerns me because we're up against it for time.
Right. I just was thinking, Vensey's part of our lore.
Yes.
As a radio program. I was
going to say, instead of Vikings lore, it should be Northland Sports Page lore.
100%. Hey.
7th anniversary just 2 weeks away.
Brian, we've got some fantastic sponsors. I don't know if you've known that or even said that recently, but let's start out with the OG.
Are you saying I go there too often?
Right. Well, maybe less than 20 seconds ago. The original OG, Arola Architecture Studio, kept us alive when things weren't looking so good. Hoops Brewing, ABS Auto Solutions, Stewart's Bike Sports and Trophies, Comfort Systems of Duluth, Advantage Emblem and Screen Printing, Kohler Toyota and Kohler Hyundai, Mike Regan at Christensen Group Insurance, Assisted Living Locators. You can reach them at www.assistedlivinglocators.org/Duluth. Kraus Heating and Cooling, your Carrier HVAC authorized dealer. Mount Royal Bottle Shop, Ferguson Bath and Kitchen, and the Blackwoods Group, including their locations on London Road, Tavern on the Hill up by the schools, in Two Harbors, and in Proctor.
And one final note, courtesy of Mount Royal Bottle Shop. Visit their website today, mountroyalbottleshop.org. Enter the online code RADIO. Now, again, you can go to their location and still mention this, but they love the convenience of their online shopping. Enter the online code RADIO, and courtesy of the Northland Sports Page, you will receive 10% off your Hoops products. all day on Saturdays. That's our big day for the show. And Saturdays are made better courtesy of Vency Glenn. He joins us now. 2-5, good morning, buddy. How are you?
Good morning, pal. How are you guys?
Doing well. Always better when we talk to you.
Yep.
You didn't take the bye week last week. You were with us. The Vikings did take the bye week. Obviously, the season's been perfect to this point. You've come out of a bye before. How hard or easy is it to rev up your engine again after a week off like that?
It's not hard at all because you don't turn it off. It's like an off day. There's a couple off days. It's not off. You know what I'm saying? So you're still preparing. You're in the middle of the season. Nothing like that changes. You still have to get your lifted in. You know, you want to stay prepared. You're 5-0. You're not going to go home and just do nothing because you like winning. So you stay true to the things that put you in a position to win and kept you winning. So you don't change a lot. It's just rest. That's all.
I can appreciate that. Plus the division collision, the rivalry now with the Detroit Lions, I think is enhanced because the Lions have become more respectable. And frankly, the Vikings have to get back to being respectable. They've been mediocre a couple of years. We can talk about how much number 8 had to do with that because I know you like to do that. But Vikings-Lions on paper, this should be a tremendous game tomorrow.
Well, here you got two physical football teams. Very physical football teams. They play hard on both sides of the ball and special teams as well. So it's the division rivalry. I don't care if you're 0-16 or 16-0. When you play a rivalry, all that goes out the window. They know each other so well, and it's just who wins the personal battles at the right moment. That's the football game that you'll see on Sunday, and it's going to be a good one.
Vency, we spent the first segment of this show today kind of doing a little bit of fanball. Our apologies to you, but we talked about what if there was a situation where each of the Minnesota pro sports teams suddenly had a coaching vacancy? Who amongst current coaches would you want that other teams have? And it stemmed from a conversation I had with a friend of mine. Well, you've actually talked to Steve before. Steve Patosia's filled in for Dave Cook on this show. And he said, I love what Dan Campbell does. It's just too bad he's in our division. And I can understand that because sometimes I think he's playing a video game and sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. And I roll when it doesn't. But I don't think I'd root as hard against him if he wasn't in our division. What's your take on Dan Campbell, the football coach?
Oh, I love him. Oh, he's a player's coach. Man, he's there to win championships, which is what the game is about. He's not into the fanfare. He doesn't knock it. You can have it and all that, but at the end of the day, you got people that are paying money to come see you play at a high level. The game will always be a championship game, whether they prepare for it or talk about it on TV and do all the hype stuff with the Pro Bowls and all that. Football is a professional sport that people want to win championships. And more than 80% of the guys out there want to win championships. And the prima donnas that just play for the money, they don't want to win. Unfortunately, there are probably 100 guys in the league that are out there just for the money, but the other thousands are trying to win championships. So, when you get coaches that play the game and then they know what it's like, they know what losing is like and all that, and they're empathetic and sympathetic towards you, you're gonna have a coach that can turn things around and be a factor in the locker room and have leadership. And that's what the game is all about, leadership.
You focused on that before. I want to ask one follow-up question real quick because you mentioned players coach in association with Dan Campbell. And I agree. I loved your answer. But back in your era, the Lions had what was deemed a players coach then too. And in my opinion, he was kind of the king of mediocre. Wayne Fontes was a players coach. Big difference between those two in the way they approach the game, isn't there?
But you have to look at the time and era and what kind of men you were dealing with back then. You got to remember, when I came in the locker room in my rookie year, Dan Fouts was 36. Charlie Jordan was 38, 39. Kellen Winslow was 30-something. So I came in with men. The oldest guy on the team now, 29, 28.
That's fair.
So you're dealing with younger men and kids than when you were dealing with a bunch of grown men and you had very few kids on the team. So it's all how you handle it back then opposed to now. It wasn't that social media. It wasn't all that. It's just so much added to the game that has nothing to do with the game, but changes the game now.
So, Vince, I'm going to take you out of sports for just a second because I had an event. We had an event up on the Iron Range where, a bunch of small towns with high school kids, having them look at the trades as a career. And it was really interesting, my friend, because, we talk about kids all the time off the mic. We had over 600 kids show up to learn about the different construction trades and whatnot up on the range. So I hadn't had a chance to talk to you or frankly talk to anybody all week long. So I wanted to let you know that maybe we're turning some corners.
That if you could help one, you've done your job.
Yep.
It's not the mass. It's never the mass. And that's what people, they talk about the masses, but it takes one.
Yep.
And if you can do that, you've done a great service. And we're getting there, but it's always one brick at a time. That's how you build a foundation.
100%. So I'm going to ask you a question that might sound fanbally, but I want it from a point of view inside the locker room. And the answer might be it doesn't matter. But we're watching kind of the implosion of the Cleveland Browns with a quarterback who seems cooked, right? And again, this is a fanball part of this question. And causing the team, basically, he's kind of the reason they're not winning from a fan's point of view. But in the locker room, when you have a player, it can be a quarterback in this case, that seems that they've lost their fastball or they lost their edge. How does the locker room respond to something like that? And maybe they just don't. I don't know.
Okay, I'm gonna soothe your ego for a second. That's not a fan ball question because it's affecting the team and the play on the football field. So that's a great question.
Great. Now you've got him puffing his chest out here in the studio. Go ahead.
No. First of all, when he got there, he was a distraction. There's no way that's going to go away, ever. Somebody in the fans, somewhere in the stands, going to always bring that up. Then he doesn't perform. Then he gets hurt. Now he has other distractions. He's playing terrible football. As a teammate, you can only take so much. Yeah, he's the leader of the team. Other guys going to support him publicly. But behind closed doors, they're ready for the coaches to move on and make a decision. Because if it was them, they'd be gone. They'd be cut. They'd be on a traded or somewhere else playing because it wouldn't be acceptable. But when you give a guy that much money, what do? You're done. And that was their first, biggest, and last mistake that they made. So it definitely affects the locker room. And guys are tired of it. And Garrett is probably more tired of it than anybody on the team.
So I want to circle back to the Vikes for tomorrow because tomorrow's a huge game with Detroit, but I just got done talking to PA about it's a weird spot for us as a show and for you two being a guest every week because by the time we talk next week, the Vikings will actually have played twice. Sunday at home against Detroit, and then they've got the Thursday game at the Rams. I talked to you about coming out of a bye, and you said no problem because you never turn it off. But what about the short week going from Sunday to Thursday? You got to get healthy, you got to get the body right again, and never turn it off. How difficult are those shorter weeks?
Well, that's tough, and especially if you hold, God forbid, you lose a key player on your team during that short week. Now it's double jeopardy. Short week, and you lose a key player, and you got to make a lot of adjustments so guys can manage it on the fly. But it's tough. Short weeks are real tough because you're aching, you're trying to get over the next one, and there's just so much you got to learn, and it's for new guys against a team that's ready for you. So one of the things that I think is going to be a big part of this game is you got two aggressive defenses. But the reason why Detroit threw the trick play against Dallas last week was to give Minnesota something to think about this week. Because when you got aggressive defense, they got to prepare for everything. So trick plays and all that, it kind of keeps you on edge, So this is a battle before they do things so other teams can have to, pay attention to it and practice for it and put themselves in position to make that play. So it's going to be a battle with coaching. Is going to be a big part of it, putting the guys in positions to make plays. But it's going to be a real physical football game, which I love.
I'm with you. I think the aggressiveness, I think the physicality, I think the talent on display tomorrow on both sides will be super interesting. Should be a great game. I am going to ask you a little bit of a fan ball question, and if I get done and you say, yeah, that is fan ball, guilty as charged. I prefaced it that way. But I guess which of these two teams could potentially be caught riding too high? Because Dallas got embarrassed by these Detroit Lions, and Detroit's pretty proud of themselves for what they did, but they got brought back to earth a little bit by the Hutchinson injury. The Vikings, not exactly the healthiest team despite coming off a bye, but they've been perfect. So everybody's been talking about how great they are. Anybody dealing with any kind of overconfidence potentially tomorrow?
Not at all. Not at all. I like the leadership on both these teams. I like both the coaches. So I don't like both the defensive coordinators. These teams are professionals, and their records and the way they play week in and week out shows that. And so I don't think any of that will come into play, and that's not a fan ball question because it leads to the field.
Wow. We each got away with one, Dave.
How about that?
We each got away with one, Dave. I'll let you close it out.
It's so funny because we ask PA fan ball questions because he likes that, and we're like double sure we don't ask.
I was going to say, we've got the closest of close relationships with Vency, yet we both walk on eggshells a little bit going, he might not like that one.
So I want to ask.
I don't want people to think I'm older, but I don't do the Sports Center hype.
Yep.
No, I know.
And talk about the game.
Vency, I'll tell you this. Why do you think we have you every week? It's because of that.
You got to know, Vency, we respect that part. Like, this isn't an eye-rolly part. We respect that part. I have a question, though, from the retired Viking. So the Vikings are coming Thursday to your backyard. Do you go to those games? Do they invite? Do you have to? I don't know how that works, but I'm hoping to see you on the sidelines.
I'm going to guess the first thing he says is San Diego is not the backyard of LA at all.
I've been to both and driven, so it's not terrible. But yes, I understand.
I'm going to make it even simpler, guys. I don't do football. You can't pay me to go sit in the stadium.
I knew the answer to that.
Only time I'll ever go sit in any sports stadium is when I come back for alumni weekend and I'm in a suite. Sitting in the stands and all that kind of stuff ain't going to never happen on my watch the rest of my life. I don't do that. No, I was on the field. I ain't going up in the stands watching nobody. I ain't going to learn nothing.
Yeah.
I ain't going to learn nothing.
Yeah,
no, sir.
Just seeing what ownership does if they do anything for alumni, bringing them in.
I liked your philosophy
I
there,
love
though.
the Vikings alumni is great. Tracy McDonald does a great job. Absolutely.
Yeah, I can appreciate that. I think we got to do a game with you because you said I'm only doing it if I'm in a suite. I'm with you. I'm in. I appreciate the time you spent with us today. We're bumping out with a song called In the Year 2525 because my favorite Vikings jersey number is 25. Vency Glenn, we love you. Thanks for another great segment again today.
Appreciate you, Vency.
I appreciate you guys. Be good. Take care.
You as well. That's Vency Glenn. That is 2-5. Drawing lines, courtesy of Roll Architecture Studio. State soccer tournament drew some lines, put some seeds on it as well. We'll talk to Duluth East girls assistant coach Cass Wellhouse. The Greyhounds got their seed. They got a familiar opponent. Two schools that have been said to have a lot alike. We'll disclose that when we come back. Northland Sports Page, we end the show with Cass Wellhouse in just a minute. We'll be right back.
Want to earn some quick cash? Plato's Closet in West Ashley and North Charleston is stocking up on cute and cozy fall styles. We pay you on the spot for your gently used name brand clothes and accessories. Plus, while you're here, you can stock up on must-have looks for autumn. We're the go-to sustainable shopping spot for teens and young adults. So stop by Plato's Closet in West Ashley and North Charleston today and refresh your wardrobe. Plato's Closet, located in West Ashley on Sam Rittenberg Boulevard and North Charleston on Rivers Avenue.
Song that I've always loved, but it says kicks just keep getting harder to find. Not up here, because I'll tell you what, on the pitch in the sport of football, because we talked a lot of football already today, soccer mecca is a way you could describe the Northland. The two teams from Cloquet, a Marshall team, an ESCO team, a Duluth East team, all headed to the state soccer tournaments. Big ups to all of them.
Oh my gosh, yes. It's interesting, as you were saying, they think of northern Minnesota as a hockey town.
Right.
It's getting pretty close to being a soccer town.
I was going to say, you can call us a hockey town and you wouldn't be wrong, but don't leave it at that because
Correct.
There's a lot more talents that are coming out of the sport of soccer. We're going to talk to Duluth East girls assistant coach Cass Wellhouse right now. Her Greyhounds are headed to the state tournament. They just found out their seed and their opponent. Cass, good morning. Thanks for being with us on your Saturday.
Good morning. Thanks for having me. Excited to be here.
Absolutely. Should be a fun conversation. I teased it as you knew your opponent, and these two schools have been said by most in the state to have plenty alike, but go ahead and disclose us. You play the 3 seed. Who you got coming up this week?
We've got Edina coming up this week on Wednesday. They are the previous state champion as well.
So a tall task in game one, but if you ever wanted more of the state behind you, I've had plenty of people say, oh, you went to Duluth East. I don't root for you very often, except when you're playing at Edina. So you might have a lot of Minnesota residents in your corner come Wednesday.
Yeah, we just might. So that'll be exciting as well.
Speaking of exciting, let's go back to Tuesday when you captured the section title, beat a very tough Centennial team. In fact, a Centennial team that had plenty of offensive firepower. I want to go back to what Steve Bukowski said in the Duluth News-Tribune after the game and said, hey, at the half, Cass basically took our defensive core aside and taught them a little something to execute in the second half, and they did. I don't want you to necessarily disclose your secrets, but take us through that conversation a little bit.
Those center three, I'm really close with them, and they were on the opposite side of the field as me during the first half. Usually they're in front of me. So during the second half, it was crucial that prior to that beginning that I was able to connect with them. And we really just talked about having confidence on the ball and confidence in our ability to defend and do the things that we've practiced. Those three really work well together, and they're really receptive to trying new things. And when they make a mistake, they know immediately that they reset and they figure it out together. So that was kind of the biggest part there.
Speaking of not wanting to make a mistake defensively, every opponent that you've had doesn't want to do that because Lily Kettle and Darby Friday exist. And those are young players. One's a sophomore, one's a freshman. Talk about them and the firepower they have now and what you're kind of licking your chops for in years to come.
Well, right now we're really excited for them to just continue to connect and play with joy and play with fun. Those two, you've heard it before, have been together since they were little.
Right.
And I think we are just starting to see what they're capable of. To play at this level and to play with your best friend really means a lot to them, and it means a lot to our soccer community as well, to see them every single time they score a goal, they turn around and they celebrate like it's the first time they've ever scored in their life. So they really bring a fire and a passion to the field, and we are just getting started with having those two on our roster.
It is going to be fun for a lot of years in that regard. I want to go to the opposite end of the field with Lily and Darby doing a lot of scoring. You got to have somebody that prevents other teams from scoring. It's interesting because your team and Steve Bukowski's team and Ronnie Rudolph's team, to be fair, because she's a great goalie, and East Greyhound Laura as well. But the old adage would be if you're playing two at a position, it means you can't really decide if you have one that's great. I would say in your case, you've got two that have been great. Jordan Flohog and Maggie Weinstead. I don't know that anybody plays any game more passionately than Maggie does.
I really like the way that you said that. We have two that are great. So both of them bring their own passion and desire for that spot, and both of them continue to show up every single time that they're on the field as well as off the field. They share that spot really well, and they're both really great at it and give us what we need in that goal.
That's very true. When you talk about Maggie Weinstead, you're talking about a senior. I want to go to the defensive core and a senior that I basically related it to hockey because, like Dave said at the outset, so much of Minnesota is state of hockey this, state of hockey that. But I basically called Jossie Salmonen the Ryan Suter of soccer because Ryan Suter to me makes playing defense look very easy. Jossie Salmonen makes defensive soccer look very easy. Would you agree?
Oh, I would agree. And one of our junior captains, Julia Davis, will always say that too. She'll say, Jossie, she'll take a full sprint and then she'll just look like she didn't sprint for 100 yards. So Jossie makes it look really easy, and her demeanor is always really calm, even when it's really tough out there and when a lot is going on.
It's amazing how valuable that can be.
Well, Brian, let's hope that off the field, she's not like Ryan Suter.
Yeah, that's a different animal
Going
altogether.
to the principal to ask about the coach.
Right, not trying to blow things up and be a sabotage in the locker room. No worries with Jossie there. But, Cass, I'm really happy that you mentioned Julia Davis. By the way, we're talking to Cass Wellhouse, Duluth East girls soccer assistant. I love that you mentioned Julia because we talked about defenders, we talked about goalies, we talked about goal scorers. The ones in the middle, literally the midfielders, kind of get left out of the equation. I told Julia Davis as we left the stadium on Tuesday night, it's one of the best performances I've ever seen. You've got kind of unsung heroes there, if you want to mention some of them.
Oh, there's a few midfielders that are unsung heroes, but the one that I would really talk about today is Julia Davis. I mean, being a junior captain on such a high-level team, I mean, says a lot. What she does for our team on and off the field goes beyond just scoring goals and keeping goals out of our net. She's everyone's number one hype girl. She's a great communicator. She's someone that, whether you are a freshman or a senior, that you're looking to for guidance, as well as somebody that if you need a laugh or you need a joke or you need someone to pick you back up, she's your number one go-to. And that also reflects in her play, right? She's the reason that our defenders can do their job so well and our forwards can do their job so well. She holds that middle and helps us transition to and fro defensively and attacking.
That's so perfectly said, because a 1-0 section final at the half and Julia Davis is still dancing to all the halftime music. I love her demeanor as well. We've only got 2 minutes, in fact, less than that left, so I want to close it the same way we opened. I just want your thoughts real quick on this area basically being a soccer mecca, because Cloquet's got 2 teams, Esco's got a team, Marshall's got a team, and Duluth East, of course, has a team at the state tournament. There's so much talent up here. Grow the game, as they say.
Yes, I totally agree. There's so much talent up here, and it's growing and growing from the youth development and the rec development to the clubs. And then now you're really seeing that result in the high school. I think it'll be really cool to see in the next 5 years if someone up here can really snatch those titles and keep making a bigger and bigger name for the Northland, or keep some titles in their name for a long streak, which would be awesome.
It would be. In Cass, I would say we need to do this again. Hopefully we can do it again if you're hoisting some hardware at the state tournament. Again, the opponent is Edina. I think the location is Spring Lake Park. Do you know the time yet? I know everything's just been revealed.
It is Wednesday at 5:30.
All right, perfect. We wish the Greyhounds and all the Northland teams the best of luck. Cass Wellhouse, I know I get to talk to you on occasion. This was really fun. Let's do it again.
Yeah.
Yes, of course. Thanks so much for having me.
Anytime, and good luck to the Greyhounds and all the area state soccer teams. There are plenty. Speaking of plenty, there's not plenty of time left in another fast-moving show.
Oh, it was great today. And, there's plenty of playoff stuff going on right now. Soccer's just the furthest ahead. That's awesome.
So thank you very much to Dave Hoops. Thank you very much to Jay Hagan for his sneak appearance today. Thank you to PA. Thank you to NC Glenn. Thank you to Cass Wellhouse. Thank you, Dave Cook.
Thank you, Brian, and we'll see you on the backside of this surgery.
Absolutely. I do what I can. Pray for Dave Cook's new knee. Say goodbye to the old one. We'll see you next Saturday. Skol Vikes. Time for 2 more. Steve Potosha and I tomorrow, hopefully following a win over the Lions. Skol. We'll see you.
This October, Tanger invites you to shop pink and save lives. Your donation of $10 or more to the Breast Cancer Research Foundation helps fuel innovative research that brings us closer to a cure. It also unlocks exclusive savings from brands like Coach, Crocs, Columbia Factory Store, and more to shop all month long. Join us as we mark 30 years of advancing research and empowering hope. Donate and access your exclusive savings today at Tanger.com.